So you've just been successful in securing an interview. Great, well done. What are you going to do in the interim? That's what matters. So you've got to be prepared. And in this video, I'm going to share all the tips that I use. I've written down some notes. So everything that I use on exactly how we can prepare. Hi and welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, my name's Jazz. I've got over 10 years experience in the corporate world. And I come to you on this channel with tips on your mindset, your career and your mental health. And in today's episode, we're talking about your career. So in this episode, we're going to focus on how you can prepare for that interview and absolutely smash it. Over the years and throughout my experience, what I've noticed often is that people skip this stage. So I've got a summary of how I would actually prepare for an interview, and I use this all the time and it's not really failed me. Of course, there's going to be times where you apply for a job, you go for the interview and you're not successful, but how you react to that and how you continue to sort of develop and grow as an individual is by understanding that failure is part of success. You won't get anywhere in life if you think rejection means complete no. And you take it on board as if you're never going to be able to do that role, you're never going to be successful, whatever it is that your conclusion of it might be at the time. Understand that it's just a time-bound process. We have to go through the emotion. When we get rejected, let's just bounce back and develop. I haven't been successful in every single role that I've applied for, but I've certainly got a good percentage of the roles that I have applied for. And especially in my early career, I certainly applied for roles that were too big for me or that I didn't really want, but I was going for the experience of the interview. So before we start this video, I just want you to know that you can do whatever you want to do. Don't be afraid to take that risk. If you feel like a job is too much for you, great, good. Just go to the interview and get the experience, because we've got to build our confidence in an interview. You know, I walk into an interview and I've got full confidence. Sometimes, if I really am that passionate about the role, I might get nervous, but that's okay because I'm going to prepare myself and I'm going to be able to deliver. Once those nerves start to settle, I'll be fine. And that's what you've got to go in with the mindset of, you have got to be prepared for an interview. Now, I know I like to ramble, but anyway, without further ado, let's get on into the video. So on my sheet of paper here, I have got, I don't know if you can see it. I'm just going to hold it up. So, how to prepare for an interview, and then I've listed like the steps of what I think you should do. This is exactly the steps that I take whenever I interview for a role. So, I always make sure I go into an interview well prepared. Now, let's move into step 1. So you've just had that email confirmation that your interview's been scheduled in. You need to look at that time frame. Let's say you've got 3 days, 4 days, a week, however long it is. You need to understand what you're going to do with that time. So the first step that I would take is I would ask for the job profile. Now, a lot of recruitment companies advertise the role on a job spec online, and great. But internally, they will have a job spec, like a job profile for that role. Don't be afraid to ask the question. Ask the recruiter for the job description. And that way you also ensure that you've got the most up-to-date resource. So once you've got your job spec, I want you to print it off. If you haven't got a printer, go to the library, and print it off, okay? Once we've got our job spec, I want you to then go through line by line and highlight everything that stands out to you. You can highlight things that you think are your skills, that match your current skills, terminology or things that you don't understand, so that you can reference them and then go back to them later. So once you've done that, we move on into step 2. Now step 2, I want you to print off your CV. And it must be up to date. So if your CV isn't up to date, I want you to go back through, I want you to update it and be absolutely critical and absolutely true with what you've done in the past and put that on there. So you've got your CV, you've printed it off. Now I want you to do the exact same that we did to the job spec. I want you to highlight any key achievements, any transferable skills, anything that you think stands out and that would be a good asset to the company that you're applying for. And this is just going to allow you to keep it fresh in your mind, and we're going to come back to it later. So now we move on to number 3. we're going to take our job spec and our CV and we're going to match the skills. Okay, so we've highlighted both sheets of paper. Now I want you to get a list together and highlight the transferable skills. What do the company require and what have you already got to offer? And then I want you to bridge the gap. Okay, so let's say, for example, the job spec requires you to have 3 to 5 years experience within a manufacturing or whatever industry you're applying for. And your skills is that you've had 2 years experience. Okay, so there's a gap there immediately. How do we bridge that gap from having 2 years experience to then requiring 3 to 4 years? So we are going to look for whatever we've got in our CV and we're going to highlight it. We're going to write down all of the things that we can use to make them sort of not notice that you haven't got 3 to 5 years experience. So now we move on to number 4, where we're going to research a company. So I want you to go on the company website. I want you to go on their LinkedIn profile. I want you to look for people on LinkedIn, hide your profile. I want you to look for people that are doing that role that you're applying for. And I want you to absorb the information. So what you're looking for when you're researching is you're looking for what the company's objectives are, what their future plans may be, what their company goals are, and understand where they're going. You want to know how you can help them on that journey. So now that we've done that, I want you to move into step 5, which is I want you to write down questions that you believe that they're going to ask you. Okay, this step is so important because like I've interviewed people, right? And if you're not prepared for an interview, it just says that you don't want the job enough. I want you to put yourself in the interviewer's seat. And I want you to pretend like you're interviewing you, essentially. And I want you to understand and think about all of the questions that you think that the interviewer is going to ask. Okay, and if you don't know, and you're not great at this stuff, you've never interviewed before either, go online and you can find tons and thousands of questions out there. And you can just copy them and write them down. Which now leads me into step 6. Okay, so now that you've wrote down your questions, I want you to answer them. I want you to answer them like you would answer them on the spot in the interview. And this step is really great because it gives you a chance to practice your questions and gives you all the time that you need. You know, you can spend 3 hours, 2 hours, 1 hour, however long you want. This is your domain. It's exclusive for you. You can write down things that don't even make sense because what we're going to do is we're going to practice our questions and we're going to perfect them to make sure that they're clear, concise, and if they're even smart. For example, some companies like the SMART technique. Okay, if you don't know what the SMART technique is, I'll come over it in another video or you can go online and research it. Now we move on to step 7. Now I want you to write down your questions that you're going to ask the interviewer. I personally really like this stage because I love when somebody has come to an interview, they're well prepared, it's gone really well, they've executed themselves well. And the icing on the cake for me is when they ask a question. So I'd recommend you ask about 3 questions and align these questions to what you want to get out of the company in terms of what are their future plans? How will your position impact their growth? What do you think this role looks like day to day? There's various questions, but please do not ask about salary, okay? Salary is not a question to be asked in an interview. Don't ask about your holidays. Don't ask about your pension contribution. These are all personal gain questions, all right? Remember, we are at the interview and we're essentially trying to apply for a role and we want them to see the value in us. So it's not for our personal gain, right? It's about what we can deliver to the company. Okay, now let's move on to step 8. Now I want you to make a clear and concise 1-page document, which is a summary overview of what you have learned. Okay, so when you've researched a company, what did you learn? Things that stand out to you, your transferable skills, how you're going to benefit the company. Some of your questions might want to go in there. I generally leave them out. This is key bits of information for when you get that dreaded question, why do you want to work for us? What do you know about the business? Those types of questions are absolute key, okay? Because you need to go in there like you absolutely know the operation and their growth. So that leads me on to the end of the video, and I want you to remember one thing. I want you to be confident. Once you get this preparation nailed and down to a T, you will be so confident in your interview, okay? And I want you to go in there with the mindset of, I do not need this job and they want me. They're going to be chasing me for this job because I am going to deliver myself and execute myself so well that they can't help but want me, okay? I always go in with a mindset of, if I don't get the role, I have not lost anything. There's thousands and thousands of jobs out there and you just need to be the right fit. And the other thing is as well, when you go into an interview, remember that you're interviewing them, okay? So if I was the interviewee, I would be wanting to understand, what can that business deliver to me? Do you know, why would I want to work there? I'm interviewing the interviewer as well. So at the end of the day, we're going to end up having a long relationship. So let's say I'm there for the next couple of years or 5 years or however long it is, even if it's for life. I need to make sure that I build a good enough rapport with the interviewer and I can bounce off that person, because it's no good going into an interview, seeing some horrible person that you don't get on with and then just accepting the job. No, because you will not enjoy it in the long run, okay? Remember, interview them, be confident. Oh, and by the way, dress smart. I don't care if you're going for a job at McDonald's or you're going for a job at a senior role in an engineering facility. I want you to dress smart, all right? You have to dress smart, okay? And I wish you all the best of luck. I'll be back with a new video on Wednesday, which is part of my best advice on series. That's a playlist. I'll leave a link below. Make sure you subscribe for more.